Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. I'm joined by Christopher Hamill and Patrick Van Straten today. How are we, gentlemen? Pato, how are you feeling this morning?
I've just had a little coughing fit, but I'm all right. I'm incredibly injured, actually. I injured my leg yesterday, so I've been like limping around all morning like a little bitch.
What have you done? What did you do?
I genuinely don't know. Like, I really don't know. I think that I wore an old pair of trainers out, and I feel like I've like they're a bit. And yeah,
old
anyway,
man
it's
Pat.
bad.
He's been done by a pair of trainers.
Chris, you're in no position. Literally,
you are the most injury-prone man I know.
Nah, that's
nothing works in your body between your neck and your ankle.
that is, closer to the truth than I'd like to admit. Sam Obaseki is definitely the most injury-prone man in football daily. He cannot play a game of football
that is definitely true.
without coming a cropper, can he?
No, 100%. Right, let's talk about another man who spent most of this season out injured. It's Sergio Aguero. That's the main topic today, because Seth Furner sent in this question. Who's going to replace Aguero at Manchester City? We're going to touch on Aguero, but we'll also do some of the other major teams across Europe, I guess. We may as well, while we're here. Sergio Aguero then, Pat. Is time up at Man City, and who's coming in?
It depends what you mean by is his time up. Like, I think when he gets on the pitch, like, he's obviously still a fantastic player, but at this point he's just not reliable enough. And I think
will he still be here next season then?
I doubt it. I doubt it. Like, because I can't imagine them going into another season with Aguero and Jesus as their strikers. And I think they're going to buy someone else, and I don't think Aguero is going to want to just be a backup. I mean, obviously, what could solve this is just getting Messi, who then does that striker role, like basically can cover for De Bruyne as well, like can essentially do everything. Like that would solve all their problems. But assuming they do want to go for a straight up striker, and to be fair, like all the press rumours suggest that is what they want. Obviously, there are a few clear options on the market. Like when you're Man City, I've written about this for a little scout report I've done over on EFD. So forgive me if I cover some of the same ground, but I think it's obvious that you've got to consider Erling Haaland here. I mean, he is the best young out-and-out striker in the world, assuming that Mbappe is maybe a little bit more versatile. And I mean, I think that actually it wouldn't be that bad a matchup. Like, Haaland plays differently. He's not going to give you the creative passing that they've historically had from Aguero. Aguero was actually really happy to go outside the box, to participate in build-up play. He routinely, under Pep, had huge expected assist numbers and really good pass progression numbers into the box. Haaland doesn't give you that. Like, what I actually wrote in that script that Haaland, like when I imagine Haaland, what I see is him sneaking into space in the box, or him making a support run in a fast counter-attack to get in position for a really good shot. And I think that's mostly true. But then last night against Sevilla, there were also several moments where he beat like 4 guys. But and he can do that. I think he averages about a dribble a game. But fundamentally, he doesn't really pass into the box. He doesn't really pass into the final third. He's not particularly creative. What he is incredibly good at is getting unbelievably high-value shots. Like, despite the fact that he takes fewer shots per game than Aguero, he puts up more XG. So the quality of his shot is really high. When you consider the quality of his shot is higher than a guy playing as a centre-forward for a Pep Guardiola side, given that he's on a relatively dysfunctional Dortmund right now, I mean, that is pretty remarkable. I think he's got 18 goals and assists in 16 league appearances this season. He's got another 9 goals and assists in 5 Champions League starts. Like, I mean, ridiculous. Obviously his scoring record is basically unimprovable. So really what it would come down to is, Pep slightly changing his style, or changing the way he uses a striker to get the best out of Haaland. But I also feel like Man City's next striker, and I kind of sound like Sam Allardyce here, but Man City's next striker should be like a big guy, because I think there's loads of crossing talent on this Man City side. Like in previous years, they got so much change out of De Bruyne, swinging those crosses to the back stick. And there have been times where the attack wasn't quite at the races. And I thought, what would actually really help them is a Dominic Calvert-Lewin, somebody really dominant in the air who does give them a target for crosses. And I think Haaland would give them that, while not sacrificing the ability to find space against settled defences. I just think he'd give them another weapon. And when you think about this Man City side, there are relatively few weapons they don't have. but an aerial threat might be one of them. And they're still a relatively small side. And I think when you've got Cancelo, when you've got Zinchenko, when you've got obviously De Bruyne, and when you've got Mahrez, I think it's a bit of a missed trick not to have somebody in there who can profit from those crosses.
And do you know the amount of times I've seen Manchester City this season? I'm sure their fans must get frustrated with this, but like dribble it or pass it into an unbelievable area and then continue to pass in around like the 6-yard box rather than just shooting and finishing their chances. The amount of big chances that I watched Man City squander continuously, like this season and last season, is like quite a long term problem. Is unbelievable. So maybe they just need someone who's literally just going to sit in the 6-yard box, the 18-yard box, and just smash it top pins every time he gets in. There's nobody better in world football than Haaland for doing that.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
How much do you think he would cost, though? How much do you think he would cost? Because he's obviously got a €66 million buyout clause that's active next season. Do you think Dortmund might say, okay, if we can get 100 for him this season, rather than losing him at a cheaper rate next year, we'd rather sell him than, let's say, Jadon Sancho for 70 or 80?
Well, I mean, it depends where they finish, right? Because Zorc has said that he's got a list of players who will have to be sold if they don't make the top 4. And right now, they're playing pretty badly in the Bundesliga.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, despite their incredible talent advantage on teams around them. I mean...
Yeah, they're 6th.
Fundamentally, what you're asking is how much is a year of Haaland worth to Dortmund? And I feel like, I think you're probably right. I think if you're getting in the 100 million range, I think Dortmund are going to be like, is a year of Haaland worth more than £34 million to us? Probably not. Like, they've probably got other plans, and maybe, I don't know if selling Haaland will let them keep Sancho. I'm not sure when Sancho's contract is up, but I could imagine them saying, you know what, Marco Rosa comes in, he has an absolutely obscene amount of money in his back pocket. It's not actually a terrible time to go hunting for attacking reinforcements. Like, you could easily go back to Salzburg and go for, you know, Patson Daka. You could go and try and get like Donyell Malen out of PSV Eindhoven. Like there are options around. So there's a part of me as well that would be like, okay, are we going to get someone as good as Haaland? No. But can we get 3 guys who can maybe like make up for that? Possibly, yeah. Like so yeah, they might be inclined to do it.
Yeah, I think anything like obviously I've seen paper reports like 150 million euros. I think that's too much money in this. I just don't see any club being able to afford anywhere near that amount of money in this current environment. I think 100 million is a massive stretch, to be totally honest with you. I think the realistic fees this summer are going to be in the 50 million to like 75 million euro mark. Anything above that, I just don't see it happening unless Man City have suddenly like dipped into the parents' fund, which is very possible, like Chelsea did last year. I would be super surprised to see somebody pay like 120 million euros this summer. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I suppose City have some assets that can maybe be moved on to offset some of that cost. You know, we spoke about Benjamin Mendy exiting the club on more than a few occasions, haven't we? But that price sounds about right. However, I slightly disagree in the fact that I think Jadon Sancho is probably going to depart the club sooner than Haaland. I could see them convincing Haaland to stay, whereas Jadon Sancho has kind of made it pretty clear he wants to go back to the Premier League, right? So I think maybe he is going to be the big asset to leave this summer, and they can pretty much get what they want for him, right? I know Manchester United actually were pretty militant on how much they were willing to offer, maybe to their demise this season. But I think there's a few teams that could really secure top 4 with his services in an increasingly like tumultuous landscape, Premier League landscape. Other options that we've considered that have sort of become maybe more than rumours in recent weeks is Romelu Lukaku to Manchester City, and that's not something that I would ever have imagined happening when he left Manchester United, because it's one of the most demanding positions you can play under Pep Guardiola, right? As that 9, come false 9, come, you know, play wherever the you want in the final third sort of thing, as long as Raheem Sterling or Riyad Mahrez come inside and you interchange with them. But under Antonio Conte at Inter Milan, he's become a different player, or a better player, let's say, a more well-rounded player. I mean, you can see it in his key passing numbers. I think he's at 1.6, or he was at 1.6 last term. He might have dipped a little bit this term, but that would have put him 4th, 5th in City's ranks the season prior in 1920. Italy, you know, he's an okay passer. He's got better. There's not a high volume of passing there. It's probably similar to Sergio Aguero, but higher than the likes of Haaland. And, there's been an absolute renaissance job when it comes to his standing in world football since he moved to Italy. 42 goals and assists in 56 appearances since moving to Milan in 2019. When he departed, 12 goals, 0 assists at Manchester United in 32 appearances. Like, he dropped out of that elite band, right? And now I think we can consider him, although he's approaching 28, he's a striker at the peak of his powers. So if Manchester City wanted to make an impression next season, if they wanted someone to make an immediate impact, he could be a good candidate in that regard.
I think the issue for me, just with Lukaku and City, is that I saw Fabrizio tweeting yesterday that Inter are going to want 100 million euros for him. And I kind of think, do you not just pay the extra 25 and get Haaland? Who's
definitely, but
is he 8 years younger?
I think that'd be a much better decision, Lukaku. But I don't think Inter Milan will get 100 for him. Like, if you can get Romelu Lukaku for pretty much 75, 80, what they paid for him, I think that would be a decent move. And the reason I say that is because Inter Milan are in financial peril at the moment, right? So they reported a 120 million pre-tax loss last season. They're currently seeking a cash injection, this is according to the Financial Times, of 200 million euros just for operations to continue next season. Spanish paper AS reported, I think a month ago, I remember you remarking on it, that they couldn't pay Hakimi's instalment in January. They had to move it back to March. That was only 8.9 million. So maybe Inter Milan won't be in a position where they can hold out for top dollar for some of their key assets in the summer. It looks like they're going to have to move one on, right? And stylistically, maybe Lautaro Martinez suits them a little bit more. The pressing numbers are certainly there. He kind of feels more like a Pep player, doesn't he? Someone that's really going to press. Romelu Lukaku, not necessarily that guy. I think 7.7 defensive pressures this term. I mean, that's like half as much as Gabriel Jesus. So Gabriel Jesus, at least, whilst he's not massively prolific, I think it's only like 6 goal involvements this term, isn't it? Although I think only in 11 starts. He does work very, very hard for the side. Haaland would definitely be my preference, but I think just keep your eye on Inter Milan's situation, and Romelu Lukaku might become a really viable option for a big club, if not Manchester City.
Yeah, I'm going to throw another name into the Man City hat that I've seen linked quite heavily over the last 2 or 3 weeks. One that's, I think, impossible in terms of signings, but would be unreal there. Harry Kane. I've seen Harry Kane linked with the exit door quite heavily since this sort of slump from Jose Mourinho. Obviously, there's that famous clip of him saying if he hasn't won a trophy in 3 years, then he'll be very unhappy, and he still hasn't won a trophy. He might well win a League Cup. But, Pat, if they don't finish in the Champions League, do you think this is the season Harry Kane should leave? And if so, is there any chance he could go to a Man City?
I don't know if he can leave.
Stuck.
Yeah, I think so. I think he'll probably stay, and I think he'll be reasonably happy about it. It's one of those things where, if the club said we need to sell you and a big club came in, I'm sure Kane would be happy to go, but I also don't think he minds staying at Spurs for the rest of his career. I personally wouldn't do it if I was City.
Yeah.
Because I think he'd cost more than Haaland. He's a lot older than Haaland. He's got some persistent injury issues. I think Haaland is probably as good right now, which is quite scary for the future. Kane gives you a bit more. Kane is obviously the prototype for a City striker. Maps quite well onto what Harry Kane does, right?
Yeah.
He's a really amazing all-rounder, incredible aerial presence, great finisher on both feet. And I think that actually it would get the best out of Kane if you said, we're going to park you in the box, surrounded by some of the best creators in the world, and you're just going to absolutely thwap everything that comes near you into the back of the net. He'd score 100 goals. But I think Haaland currently seems a little bit more robust, and given that I don't think there'd be a big difference in prices, but I think Kane would cost more, it seems like an easy decision as far as I'm concerned. I think if you were gonna go and have to spend, if you want to go and spend the kind of money that it would take to get Kane out of Spurs, go and try and get Mbappe out of PSG instead.
Oh.
1 year left.
I mean,
1 year left
Mbappe
on
has
his
1
deal
year
this
left.
summer.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean that surely when Neymar signed his new deal, or it seems like he signed that new deal, he must have had assurances that Mbappe was going to sign a new contract.
Yeah, you'd imagine. Just to go back to Harry Kane, like his contract expires in 2024, so when he's 29. So Tottenham are, they're in. But Tottenham are on, much more sounder financial footing, aren't they? They don't need to sell him. I mean, Harry Kane needs to go if he wants to win a trophy. Tottenham are arguably as far away as they've ever been from winning the Premier League. I mean, expected points has them 10th. Not exactly the progress that Harry Kane was looking for in his peak years, no doubt. Like, they aren't as good a side as West Ham at this point, as Brighton, as Villa. So from a competitive standpoint, I think if we didn't know Harry Kane as Mr. Tottenham, if he was a guy that just come into the club for 1 or 2 seasons, put up these numbers, we'd be like, he should definitely go. He will probably want to go. But he has that affinity with the club. They've kind of... And he has had those injuries, although he got over that ankle injury incredibly quickly this season.
Worryingly quickly, man.
But that's becoming a little bit sort of... that's becoming seasonal, isn't it, that ankle injury? But like I said, it's not. It doesn't seem to have affected him that much this season. Yeah, I think he should, but he probably won't, which is the sad thing. But I think this is more reminiscent of like an RVP situation. So I could see him going to Manchester United much more than I could see him going to Manchester City. And I know that like you have Cavani now, that might hinder Rashford's development down the middle. You're probably going to move for a right winger.
I think United fans now realise that Martial and Rashford aren't strikers. So obviously we are going to have to replace Cavani. But I just don't think Kane is realistic. I don't think United are at a high enough level, playing wise, to convince Kane to leave Spurs right now. I think he would have to leave for a club that are almost guaranteed deep stage of the Champions League.
His options are extremely limited because he didn't move when he was 25. So he doesn't really have the luxury of choice, I don't think. And Manchester United probably are closer than Tottenham. And I know that that's kind of... they've kind of traded places a few times in the last couple of seasons. But yeah, we could likely see a bit of an Alan Shearer situation where he kind of finishes his career with... I mean, I know Shearer won the Premier League, but with nothing at the club he loves, which is sad given his output, but still.
All right, so we go through some other... Oh, go on, Pat, go on.
Oh, I was going to say, and equally, like, Spurs could bin Mourinho at some point, get a new manager in and just, like, take off. Like, I mean, it's... Like, the squad is still really good at Spurs. Like, there's so much talent in it. I don't really think they have that many personnel problems. I mean, I know it's going to cost them... What was the story this week? 40 mil if they want to get rid of Mourinho, which is absolutely... I can't quite believe Daniel Levy, of all people, gave him a long contract with no break clauses. That seems really un-Levy-like. But... I don't know, like, I think Spurs' path to being a really good side. I think the thing about Man United is, like, they'd need to be, like, I think Joe is kind of right. They'd need to be right on the edge of winning a title. Because I think the draw for Kane of being a one-club man-ish, given he went out on loan, like, I think that would probably counteract, like, I have, like, an extra 10% chance of winning the Prem. I think if he were gonna go to another club in the UK, it'd probably have to be, like, Liverpool or City.
Yeah, I agree. Is there any other names then we want to throw in here that we think, like, potential for replacement, a bit Aguero style, Chris?
I think I've made a sort of short list. I think it's well worth like going through some teams. Yeah, maybe in the middle or lower half of the Premier League, because we do tend to bang on about the top 6, don't we? And Nick Pope at Burnley might be an interesting place to start. I mean, talk about players in their prime. Nick Pope is now 28. He's been in incredible form this season. 7 clean sheets in his first 18 games, save percentage of 81%, which is ridiculous. His post XG, which takes into account, the quality of shot and, judges whether the keeper should save it rather than just how good the opportunity was from the position taken, is the 3rd best in Europe. Like, he's maintaining pace with people like Jan Oblak at current. I don't know who they'd replace him with. There's some really good goalkeeping talent in the Championship at the moment, like Seny Dieng at QPR has had a breakthrough season there, and it's been interesting monitoring his progress because he went out on a series of loans. He's a Swiss player. Like, I think he was at Rotherham before, or Doncaster, one of those teams. And Arsenal, Leeds, and QPR were interested in him in January, which is where he I came across him. So they could maybe
Where would
dip into the
Pope go, though?
Championship
Like,
to replace him. But I think just go anywhere. I mean, Tottenham might be a good one because Hugo Lloris is sort of coming towards the end of his maybe status as an elite goalkeeper, I think. And Chelsea might just think at the end of the season, if they can get a suitor for Arisa Balaga, which seems impossible, they might just go for him, because I think he is someone that could just fix a top team's goalkeeping problem like instantaneously. But yeah, it might just be like a case of I don't know. He probably deserves a move, but is there one to be had?
Yeah, I think that's the tough one, because a lot of the elite sides right now have got a really fixed goalkeeper. Other than maybe Chelsea, and Hugo Lloris, even though he is a bit older, I think he's obviously club captain. Jose loves him, doesn't he? I think it'd be hard to displace him if you're Nick Pope first season, as a guarantee. I also think there are still question marks over how good he is with his feet. His save percentage is obviously incredible, and he is a ginormous fellow from corners and set pieces, which adds loads to Burnley's game, but not the best with the ball at his feet. And some of these clubs like Chelsea under Tuchel, can I see Nick Pope playing out from the back into that back three? I think there's a few question marks there for me.
As much as I can see, Aretha Blog's okay, isn't he? But Mendy certainly isn't great with his feet from what I've garnered. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. There is limitations stylistically, isn't there? Because all he has to do under Dyche is twat it to Ashley Barnes.
Maybe an Everton, Pickford obviously struggling a little bit, and Olsen's just not it, is it? And Everton, sorry Burnley fans, but Everton, that would be a good move for him, competing for sort of top six spaces under Carlo Ancelotti. So I think that's probably more the level I could see him than maybe Man City or Liverpool or Chelsea or something like that. All right, with some other names then. Should we go through Southampton, potentially? Danny Ings, obviously they're having a rotten time, Southampton at the moment, the worst side in the Premier League at the moment, really. Six losses on the bounce? Yeah. I think West Brom have picked up 2 draws in that time, and Southampton also have the 9-0 against their name in that 6 game losing streak. And Danny Ings' contract's up in 2022. If you're Danny Ings, surely you're asking to leave. I think he's got to go this summer.
What I thought was interesting about this was obviously Pat's mentioned in the past couple of episodes he doesn't rate Southampton's squad, and we've not really opened up on it. So what I wanted to ask you boys was is it worth selling him to maybe correct some of the imbalances in that squad? And who would you potentially bring in? Can you get 2 good players for that one player, basically?
Oh God, with a year left, do you get more than 40 million for him with a year left? I'm not sure you do.
I was going to say I'd snap a club's hand off for anything between 30 and 40 at this point.
I do think if you're Southampton that you maybe capitalise on the fact that some of your players have got a really good reputation at the moment. So for instance, if somebody offers you big money for Ward-Prowse, you absolutely have their arm off, because Ward-Prowse is a very average player. If you could get 20 mil for Ward-Prowse, I think that would be unbelievable business, to be honest with you. And I'm sure somebody would offer more. I'm sure you could probably get 25 mil from a Premier League club. So I do think that it's the right idea for them to basically say, what are our assets? If somebody wants Bednarek for big money, let's just do it and assume that we can find somebody else. Because that squad, it really is. When you start looking at it, it's so thin. I think if you ask the average football fan, they really think it's way better than it is. Because I don't think Hasenhüttl has had enough credit. But I think if you compare it even to Brighton, the number of players that I'd take from Brighton for a side competing for the top 6, it's twice as many as I'd take from Southampton. It's absolutely ridiculous. They're basically they're 2 strikers and a defender, and that's it. So I do think that they need to start rapidly considering how they're going to turn that squad over, because otherwise they will just sink through the floor at some stage when Ings goes, or if he gets injured again.
And Hasenhüttl was not going to be around forever, dragging them out of these situations. I feel like the 6-game losing streak at the moment has got people a little bit like when they lost 9-0 the first time around. People were like, well, is Hasenhüttl really all that? And then when you look at the squad a bit more depth, you're like, he's doing a pretty good job with this squad, given that we were talking about him as a upper mid-table side. And now they're suddenly slumping back down to sort of where they should be, and everybody's suddenly massively questioning him. All right, what about Leicester? Because Jamie Vardy's 35. I suppose he's a candidate here for a player that potentially needs replacing, even though he seems like timeless at this stage, Hamill.
Yeah, he'll be 35 next January, which is, again, like I think that would have crept upon a lot of fans who aren't paying attention because of his consistency, like you said. And it is pretty alarming that the last player to score double digits in the league for Leicester was Riyad Mahrez in that 17-18 season before he left for City. And I know Harvey Barnes will do it this season. He'll break that hoodoo, won't he? I think he's currently on 8. And that has been essential for Leicester because they're certainly not going to get that on the other flank from Perez or Albrighton. But yeah, they have rode their luck, Leicester. I know they've been unlucky with injuries this time. They've dealt with it extremely well, but they've rode their luck with Jamie Vardy and his career trajectory. Like, they should have been putting together contingencies for him 18 months ago. And I know they bought Kelechi Iheanacho, and he's been okay as an impact substitute. Maybe not as good as we first thought, but certainly not as bad as some people have made out. But they should probably go hard in the summer for a decent replacement. And there will be opportunities because, like you sort of intimated earlier, teams will have to take a sort of cut price fees for some of their star assets.
Why don't Leicester go for rings?
I think Edouard's just a better option from Celtic, as much as it pains me to say. He's in a very similar situation to Ings in that he's got a year left on his contract in the summer. And he's 23. He's not injury prone at all. Like, he clearly wants to move. Like, every star player at Celtic wants to move on. I think a little double sweep of Edouard and Ryan Christie for probably between 30 and 35, maybe 30, closer to 30, would be really smart business for Leicester, because then they can upgrade that right flank. In Ryan Christie, they get someone who is a little bit trigger happy, or very trigger happy, but who presses an awful lot, who is, accustomed to the physicality of Rodgers' game. He's a huge upgrade on the names I've just mentioned. And yeah, you get Edouard, who can sort of maybe interchange with Barnes on the left-hand side in a way that he's done with James Forrest at Celtic before. And it starts to look a lot more balanced, and the outlay isn't huge. And, Edouard would probably be happy to play... not a bit part role, it'd have to be probably more significant than that, but an understudy role to Jamie Vardy for that final season, because Jamie Vardy cannot be starting at 35, 36.
Yeah, I think Edouard is a good shout. I wonder whether or not, I haven't watched him enough, but do you think he would be willing to come in and play second fiddle for another year? Because Vardy is still going to be starting 30 games next season, isn't it? In all comps, probably.
I think you can, but I don't necessarily think you could play him on the left. You can play him as a second striker. Like, Brendan Rodgers can mix it up. He's shown a willingness to mix it up, and I know that not many players really profile like Jamie Vardy, and there's a temptation to only highlight players that play on the shoulder, that have pace as a direct replacement for Vardy. Like, if you can go and get a good player for a decent price, it's always worth considering, right? And it doesn't matter if they profile in the same sort of sense.
Yeah.
Leicester are well capable of playing in a different way, and you know what, Harvey Barnes, his future might be down the middle. Like, it sounds like quite a rogue shout now, but he doesn't really create an awful lot. His dribble numbers are okay. His link-up play is okay. What he's really good at is coming in from the flank, finding space in sort of the half spaces. And he's got that nice little surge, and this is right. He's kind of 2-footed as well, I guess. So maybe that is an interesting avenue to explore as well.
All right, let's do some quick fire questions then. The first one was sent in by Carabini10, and this is off the back of that Monday Night Football piece, of course, that Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher did, where they listed their best pound-for-pound signing in Premier League history. I'll read you their top 5. They went for Alan Shearer to Blackburn Rovers, Eric Cantona to Manchester United, Thierry Henry to Arsenal, Vincent Kompany to Man City, and Jamie Vardy as their 5th. Who would ours be then? Let's say, who would ours be?
That is cheating, Jamie Vardy, right? Because he was bought when they were in the championship. Yeah.
That is cheating.
I agree. That is definitely cheating. Shouldn't have counted. But let's say we can go Europe wide then. Let's not limit ours to the Premier League. If Jamie and Gary included a Champo signing in there, is there anybody we want to say as potential worldwide recently that we think? Pat?
Worldwide. Well, I mean, oh god. I mean, it's difficult because I think about guys like Carvajal, you know, but he went from the Real Madrid academy to Leverkusen, and they bought him back, I think, for like 2.5 mil, something like that. I mean, I'm surprised Fabregas isn't in it here because I can't remember what we paid for him, but it was like basically nothing. It was like compensation because he was a kid.
Yeah, it was like 3 mil, I think. It was in a script on something similar.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty damn good. Like I'm trying to think of like a transformative signing. You know what? Azpilicueta for like what was it, 8 mil or something? Like just after they won the Champions League. I mean, they have got value for money out of that. Christ, it's very difficult.
There's some ones that
Lewandowski on a free.
Yeah, maybe going to the radar. Like Johnny Evans to Leicester was what, like 3 mil. Obviously there's more obvious ones like N'Golo Kante. What was he, 5.5? But some of the more outlandish ones I can remember is sort of Nicolas Anelka. Wasn't he 500k from PSG, and then Arsenal sold him on for 20+ mil to Real Madrid.
Good. Philipp Lahm. What about Philipp Lahm to Bayern from Stuttgart? I think he was 5 mil, like in 2005, which
that's pretty good.
He obviously went on to become like one of the greatest players in the history of the club. So I'd have him up there around Lewandowski as well.
Edwin van der Sar, I always think was truly transformative.
Yeah, that was because Man United had a rotten time with goalkeepers post Schmeichel.
Yeah.
And that was like 2 mil, right?
And I mean, Pirlo on a free. Toni Kroos was like 25 mil from Bayern Munich to Real Madrid. Like, and that was relatively recent. That was what, 2013. Like that's pretty amazing when you consider what they've got out of him as well.
PK going back to Barcelona potentially. Maybe Dani Alves, that signing from Sevilla. I know it's a bit more expensive. Right. What was that, 30 mil? But arguably the greatest right back of all time.
Well, we need to put a bit of respect on David Moyes here as well. Seamus Coleman for 60k. I mean, that pound for pound, that's been pretty good at Everton, hasn't it?
Well, and if Suarez delivers a title at Atletico Madrid this season, I think that like they've got to pay bonuses at the end of each year, Atleti. But I think Sid Lowe said that at maximum, if he stays there 3 years and they get all the bonuses, I think it's going to be €6 million. Like, if he wins them a title this year, like, I mean, that's priceless to them.
Yeah. All right, let's do another question then, because we could be going on these transfers for ages. This one's from Vasi Detalinara 8, and they say, is this the year Mbappe wins his first Ballon d'Or? It did feel like, I have to say, watching that game, I was doing a live stream with Zach and Sam for the Football Social, which we are going to be bringing back and doing more of.
Back, baby.
It did feel like the passing of the torch, like in a big way, that game. I know that he's obviously been exceptional and he's done nearly everything it's possible to do at a young age, other than win the Champions League. But that game felt so like symbolic of the passing of the torch from like Messi, Ronaldo to Mbappe. I think this is the year he does it. I think he's got the momentum. I reckon Ballon d'Or, Mbappe, first one this year, 2021. What do you think, Hamster?
Well, the stars are aligning, aren't they? In that Barcelona probably won't win La Liga. Juventus aren't looking like they're going to retain Serie A. So if PSG, I think they're behind Lille at current, aren't they? But, you know, I imagine they'll catch them just owing to the sheer talent deficit. If they mop up on a domestic front and go really deep in the Champions League again, and Mbappe's, you know, putting up the sort of numbers he was doing in the past that were maybe, you know, just overshadowed by the continuing brilliance of Messi. I mean, let's not forget he put up over 40 goal involvements last season, despite them having a down year. It could happen, and he could very feasibly, you know, deserve it. Maybe unlike, it was nice that Luka Modric got one, but people were still a bit like, this feels like a lifetime achievement award. Whereas now it's like, Mbappe's output is just the best in the world.
What about Lewandowski though? Like, I feel like because he didn't win it last year, you know, he's got 31 goal involvements in 19 Bundesliga games. I feel like because he didn't win it last year, that helps him as well. It's almost like everybody realised that was a up, and they're like, ooh, if he can just maintain that, I think if he wins the Bundesliga and goes deep in the Champions League, if he finishes with 50 goal involvements in the Bundesliga, because he didn't get it last year, I think he'll win it this year again, actually. I don't know. It's between those two, I think. I'm panicking. What do you think?
Mbappe's kind of got more roots to it, right? Like, I mean, like, I think Lewandowski, I do think he's the main contender at the moment, but like, you do sort of feel like, Mbappe could win the Euros. That would probably do it for him. If he wins the Champions League, that will probably do it for him. On the other hand, you could easily imagine Messi wins the Copa America in the summer, and goes to City and has an absolutely incredible couple of months, and suddenly everyone's like, well, obviously Messi's got to win the Ballon d'Or again. Like, it can turn around quite quickly, but I would quite like to see Mbappe do it, because I think he has been in the top 3 players in the world now for about 3 years. And arguably at the moment, he and Lewandowski and Messi are the 3 best players in the world at the moment. So yeah, I mean, it definitely could be his year, and pretty much I think he probably needs to win one of those big trophies to do it. That's my sense. But you might be right that he's got a path because of the underperformance of the sides with the other kind of main contenders.
All right.
Like he does it in the Champions League, doesn't he? Like Zlatan didn't put up these numbers in the Champions League, but obviously crushed it on a domestic front and wasn't even in the conversation.
Yeah.
So I think that is just what is keeping him maybe out in front. But yeah, I'd love Lewandowski to win it.
All right, let's do one more before we do a personal one. This from Mike14. He says, what European club is an exciting growing process? So is there any European club that you guys got your eye on that you think are just coming good about now? Anything for you, Hamster?
Just mentioned him, didn't we? Lille under Christophe Galtier, and I do appreciate how he looks like a proper Bond villain. He is a really moody, sultry character on the sideline, and they've got some really interesting young talent. And I forget the name of their sporting director; just left my brain.
Well, he's left now.
But they've done a great job, haven't they, in recent times, sort of polishing rough diamonds or people that have fallen on hard times. With regards to their reputation, not like Sanchez, the Akone, Bamba's still killing it. Of course, have who am I thinking of? He was at Celtic, the striker.
Dembele.
I can't remember his name. No, not Dembele.
Lille. Timothy Ware.
Timothy Ware. God, couldn't think of it then for a second. So yeah, maybe Lille. Exciting. I mean, you wrote about Leverkusen, Pat. They seem to be, it's quite cyclical with them, isn't it? They seem to be producing a lot of young talent right now. Are they a shout?
I'd say probably not, just because I think Bailey will probably go at some stage. I'm not sure that they're really developing that much right now. I mean, they went and got Demarai Gray in January. I mean, it's not very exciting. Yeah, but that's one guy. I don't think that necessarily I want to think of a team where there's a whole crop of young talent coming through, and I think Lille is a better shout in that regard. Like Monaco as well are kind of coming on leaps and bounds. They've been having a really, really good season. And look like they could.
But they're led by old boys, aren't they? Volland and Ben Yedder are still playing really well. Them. Actually, they've got the centre halves, haven't they? Disasi and
Badiashile. Who is really, really young. I mean, there are lots of interesting guys there, and I do think that Kovac is a good boss for them. I don't know, Hoffenheim doing some quite interesting things. They've got Christoph Baumgartner, Didier Samuseku, Robert Skov. These guys are not young. They're more 23, 24. But that's quite an interesting crop of guys at Hoffenheim.
Yeah.
PSV Eindhoven as well. With Roger Schmidt, Ihataren, Malen, Gakpo,
Sangare.
And Noni Madueke. There's loads of interesting people playing for PSV right now.
Yeah, I think as well, Sevilla, potentially. I know that they got smacked about a bit by Dortmund last year, but I think since Monchi's return, it's seems to have reinvigorated the club a little bit. Jules Koundé is going to go in the summer, and they're probably going to get 70 million for him, 60, 70 million from him from someone. And I'm sure that will be reinvested very, very well. So I think that's one to keep your eyes on. And obviously, they're not a team to watch, but I am bloody excited to see Marco Rose at Dortmund. I think that is going to be like a tantalising prospect. And I know they're going to sell one of Sancho or Haaland, but the players that they bring in with that money and the rest of the youngsters there, like imagine Bellingham under Marco Rose. I'm sure he's going to be in like 2 years one of the best young central midfielders on the planet. So I'd include them as well, just because the Marco Rose factor. Let's do a personal.
I think we just take.
Go on.
I was going to say, I think we just take the Red Bull group for granted now, don't we? Like the RB Leipzig, it's like not even worth mentioning them, but their team is obviously littered with players. Upamecano moving on, Mukiele, Tyler Adams, like Danny Olmo, pretty exciting as well. But yeah.
All right, let's do one personal question then. This from Ewan, SO4. Where will your first holiday be after COVID? Pat?
We've already planned to go to the south of France in the autumn, assuming we can. So we'll take the little girl to the south of France. Got a nice villa with a pool, so that should be fun.
Oh, a little villa with a pool in the south of France. Classic. Pat living the life. What about you, Hamster?
What are we talking, like Nice, Pat, or?
No, I don't think so. Christ, I actually can't remember where it is. Like, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't remember. I'd have to check with my wife. But no, not like a proper coast, just like in the south.
Yeah. Okay. Fair, rural. I like it. Well, I was supposed to be going to South Africa this year, but my best mate's wedding has been pushed back a year, which is unsurprising. Which means, like, obviously got money back for flights, for accommodation. So there's a little bit there to play with regards to, like, you know, a holiday at the end of the year. But I don't know. I'm at the minute. I'm kind of putting my expectations like on hold. Do you know what I mean? Because if I get myself geared up for a holiday at the end of this year and it doesn't happen, I will be extremely pissed off. Maybe just a nice little soiree in the UK. You know, like to Brighton or something.
Yeah, I mean, I did Edinburgh last year when we could just get out, and that was very good. So I recommend that. But yeah, mine would probably be like Cornwall, something like that. I think I don't know if I'm brave enough to go abroad or book an abroad holiday just because I panic that it'll fall through. But either way, that's the end of another episode of Sunday Vibes. Pat, what have you got on the podcast this week?
Oh, Jesus Christ. What was it? It was...
This is my favourite bit of Sunday Vibe, by the way.
Struggling to remember what his podcast topic was.
It was... Doogie and I were trying to figure out how Mourinho could save his job at Tottenham Hotspur. But basically, it was like a how to fix Spurs. It's quite an interesting one. Spurs are a weird case. So check that one out if you're a Spurs fan or just enjoy Spurs being terrible.
Anything to plug, Hamster?
The one-on-one Eden Hazard that was shot last week on Euro Football Daily, that seems to be ticking along nicely. But yeah, I'd just say maybe just keep your eyes peeled for some live shows coming your way, because we're going to try out a few of them, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. Right, that's it for another week's episode. What am I trying to say? That's it. Right, see you later. Bye.